Evan Hale was just a simple human waiter working inside the Orbit Spoon, a small diner floating on the biggest alien space station in the sector. He walked between tables every day with a tray in his hands, taking orders, cleaning spills, and trying his best to smile even when customers ignored him. Most aliens saw him as nothing more than a background worker. Someone who didn't matter, someone who could be replaced in a second. Some customers talked to him like he was a machine, some didn't look at him at all, and some even made fun of him for being a human. Evan never argued back, he only nodded, wrote their orders, and continued his job. His boss, a thick-necked alien with 4 eyes, always shouted at him to hurry up, to move faster, to clean better. The boss acted like Evan was lucky to even have a job on the station. But behind Evan's quiet face, he carried a heavy heart. Every night after work, he would sit near the big, transparent wall of the station and watch the stars. He wondered what it would feel like to have a life that mattered. He wondered if humans were meant for more than serving food in faraway alien stations. He dreamed of doing something important. But dreams always felt too big for someone like him. Still, Evan had something rare inside him. He had kindness, even when people treated him badly. Even when customers tossed their empty cups at him or called him slow, he stayed gentle. He believed that kindness was the only thing a person should never lose. One evening the station was louder than usual. A huge alien crowd filled the diner. Music played from glowing speakers. Multicolored lights reflected off the metal walls. The smell of different foods mixed in the air. Evan rushed from table to table, trying to keep up. His legs were tired, his arms were shaking, but he continued with the same soft smile he always had. At one table, a group of alien officers laughed at him when he delivered the wrong drink. They tossed the cup back at him, and the cold liquid splashed on his shirt. The whole group laughed louder. Evan whispered an apology and cleaned the mess while they kept mocking him. The other customers pretended not to see anything. No one defended him. No one cared. After his shift ended, he changed into a plain gray jacket and stepped outside the diner. The hallway was quiet now. The crowd had left. Only the soft hum of machines echoed through the space station. Evan sighed and leaned against the wall for a moment. His back hurt and his hands felt numb. But instead of going back to his small sleeping pod, he walked toward the viewing deck again. The wide window displayed endless stars shining like tiny white fires. Evan always felt peaceful when he looked at them. They made him believe that the universe was too big for anyone to stay small forever. He sat on the floor, hugged his knees, and closed his eyes for a moment. He imagined himself exploring some distant world. He imagined discovering something important. He imagined someone looking at him and saying he mattered. But his imagination broke when he heard something. A small sound, like someone crying. Evan opened his eyes and looked around. The deck was empty, or at least he thought it was. Then he heard it again, a soft whimper, scared and weak. He stood up and followed the sound slowly. His heart beat faster with every step. Behind one of the benches he saw movement. Something was hiding there, something small. Evan crouched and whispered gently, "Hello? Are you hurt?" 2 glowing eyes looked back at him, shining like silver moons. It was a child, an alien child, shaking and holding her arms tightly around herself. Her skin shimmered like soft light, and she looked terrified. Evan didn't know it yet. But in that moment, the entire universe had already begun to change around him. And everything started because a human waiter chose to care. Evan froze for a moment, unsure if the small alien child would run from him or attack him. The glowing eyes stared at him with fear, and he could see her shoulders shaking as she tried to make herself smaller. He slowly raised his hands to show he wasn't dangerous and whispered, "It's okay. I won't hurt you." His voice was calm, soft, gentle. The child didn't answer. She only pressed her back harder against the bench, as if she expected someone to grab her at any moment. Evan noticed her skin. It wasn't like any species he had seen before. It shimmered like warm silver, almost as if tiny stars were trapped under her skin. Her hair was long, soft, and faintly glowing. He had seen many aliens during his months on the station, but none like her. Evan took one slow breath and shifted slightly. "You're safe here," he said. "Are you alone?" The child shook her head quickly, then looked around with wide, anxious eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper when she finally spoke. "They're looking for me." She sounded frightened, exhausted, as if she had been running for a long time. Evan felt a cold worry in his chest. "Who is looking for you?" he asked gently. She hugged herself tighter and whispered a single word that made no sense to him. "Hunters." Something about the way she said it sent a chill down Evan's spine. He didn't know what hunters were, but he knew fear when he heard it. The child looked as if she had seen something terrible, something no child should ever see. Her small feet were bruised, and her clothes were torn. Evan noticed tiny cuts on her arms, as if she had crawled through metal halls or sharp debris. She looked tired, starving, and scared beyond words. Something inside Evan's heart broke. At the sight, he reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out a wrapped sweet biscuit he kept for long shifts. "Here," he whispered, placing it gently on the floor and sliding it closer. "You can eat it if you want." The child hesitated. Her silver eyes flicked between him and the biscuit. After a long moment, she reached out with shaking fingers and grabbed it. She ate quickly, almost desperately, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Evan sat cross-legged a bit farther away so she wouldn't feel trapped. "My name is Evan," he said softly. "What's your name?" She swallowed and whispered, "Lyra." Evan smiled gently. "Lyra. That's a beautiful name, Lyra." Looked at him as if she wasn't sure whether she could trust him, but a tiny part of her fear faded. She took a slow breath and whispered, "You shouldn't help me. If they find you with me, they will hurt you too." Evan felt a strange pull in his chest, a need to protect her, even if he didn't understand why. "I don't care," he said quietly, surprising himself. "You're a child, you're scared. And you need help." Lyra's eyes filled with tears that shimmered like drops of light. "No one ever helped my kind," she whispered. "Everyone is afraid of us. Or they want to use us." Evan frowned softly. "Use you? Why?" Before she could answer, a sudden deep vibration shook the metal floor. It traveled through the station like a silent alarm. Lyra gasped and covered her ears. "They're here," she whispered in terror. "The hunters. They found me." Evan stood quickly, scanning the hallway. He didn't see anything yet, but he felt something in the air, like a change in pressure, like the calm before a storm. Lyra grabbed his sleeve with tiny trembling fingers. "Please, don't let them take me." Her voice cracked with pure fear. Evan felt something awaken inside him, something stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. A deep human instinct to protect someone innocent. He nodded slowly. "I won't let them," he whispered. "But we need to move now." He lifted Lyra carefully, holding her close as her small arms wrapped around his neck, and as he ran down the long hallway with her in his arms. Evan Hale, once ignored by everyone, took his first step into a destiny far greater than he ever imagined. Evan hurried down the long hallway with Lyra in his arms, his heart pounding hard as the strange vibration echoed again through the station. It felt like the air itself was warning him that something terrible was approaching. Lyra buried her face against his shoulder. Shaking like a leaf, he could feel her fear in every movement of her small body, and it pushed him to run faster. When he reached a corner, he stopped, pressed his back against the wall, and looked around carefully. The station lights flickered for a moment, then returned to normal. But the atmosphere didn't feel normal at all. It felt heavier, sharper, like something unseen was stalking the corridors. "What do they look like?" Evan whispered, trying to calm his breathing. Lyra lifted her head slowly, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "Tall, dark armor. No faces," she whispered. "They don't speak. They only follow orders." Evan didn't know who would send such creatures after a child, but he didn't have time to wonder. He heard heavy footsteps, slow, but too synchronized to be normal station guards. The sound of metal scraping the floor made his skin crawl. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her toward the service tunnels behind the diner. He knew every hidden corner of this part of the station, because he used them during busy shifts to move faster. Those tunnels weren't meant for passengers, but right now they were the only safe path. They slipped through a narrow maintenance door, and Evan closed it quietly, holding the latch so it wouldn't slam. The tunnels were dim, filled with humming pipes and dusty wires. Lyra squeezed his hand tightly, her glowing eyes scanning the shadows, as if she expected the hunters to burst through the walls at any second. Evan crouched beside her. "You're doing great," he whispered. "We'll get somewhere safe." Lyra shook her head. "No place is safe from them," she whispered. "They always find me." She looked like she was fighting tears again. "I didn't want to come to this station, but they were coming closer. I had nowhere else to run." Evan felt a painful twist in his chest. "How long have you been running?" Lyra wiped her eyes. "Many days, maybe more. I don't remember." Her voice carried exhaustion that no child should ever know. Evan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you're not running alone anymore," he said softly. Before she could respond, the maintenance door they just used made a soft clang like something heavy had hit it. Lyra gasped and grabbed Evan's sleeve. Evan held her behind him, staring through the dark tunnel. A faint red scanning light passed under the door, sweeping left and right, like an eye searching for movement. The hunters had reached the diner area, and they were checking every possible escape path. Evan whispered, "We need to keep moving." They crawled deeper into the tunnel, moving slowly so their footsteps wouldn't echo. The temperature dropped as they approached the lower levels, steam drifting from broken vents. Evan kept glancing over his shoulder, expecting to see armored shadows following them. Soon they reached a cross-section where 3 different tunnels met. Lyra tugged lightly at his shirt. "They're close," she whispered. "I can feel them." Before he could respond, the air vibrated again, this time stronger, almost like a silent thunder shaking through metal. Evan heard the sound of something cutting through the atmosphere. A shadow slid across the far tunnel wall, tall, with long, sharp edges. Evan didn't think twice. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her into the narrowest tunnel, one barely wide enough for him to squeeze through sideways. The hunters wouldn't expect someone to crawl this deep into the maintenance maze. Lyra clung to him as he pushed forward, scraping his arms against rough metal. The tunnel was dark, only lit by a faint blue glow from Lyra's skin. Suddenly she whispered, "Evan, the hunters. They don't chase me for who I am. They chase me for what I have inside me." Evan looked back at her, confused and breathless. "What do you mean?" She placed a trembling hand over her chest. "There is something in me. Something powerful. Something they want." Before he could ask more, the tunnel flashed with red light. The hunters had found their trail again. And Evan realized the danger was far greater than he imagined, much greater, and he was the only shield the child had left. Evan kept crawling forward through the narrow tunnel, his breath shaking as he tried to stay quiet. Lyra moved close behind him, her faint glow lighting the tight walls around them. The red light from the hunters faded for a moment, but Evan knew they weren't safe. Those creatures were tracking something only Lyra had inside her. When the tunnel finally opened into a small maintenance chamber, Evan helped Lyra stand up. She looked pale, her silver skin dimmer than before. Evan knelt in front of her and whispered, "Lyra, you said they want something inside you. What did you mean?" Lyra lowered her head, her glowing hair falling over her face. She looked like she didn't want to say the truth, like she was afraid Evan would run away if he heard it. Her small voice trembled when she finally whispered, "I was born with a core, a celestial core." Evan blinked, confused. "A core? Like a machine?" Lyra shook her head quickly. "No, it is alive. It is light. It is power." She placed her small hand on her chest. Inside me is a spark that can power worlds. Or destroy them. The chamber suddenly felt colder. Evan stared at her in shock. He had seen alien technology before, but nothing like this. And this child, this tiny, frightened girl carried something that could change the fate of entire planets. Lyra looked up at him with teary eyes. My kind protects these cores. We guard them. We are born to keep them safe. She swallowed hard. But the hunters, they want to take it from me. Even if I die. Evan felt anger rise inside him. Anger at the idea that anyone would chase a child for power. He took a deep breath and gently held her shoulders. Lyra, listen to me. You are not alone now. I won't let them take you. I won't let them hurt you. Her eyes widened. But you're human, she whispered. Humans don't fight hunters. Evan smiled weakly. Maybe not. But humans protect people they care about. Before Lyra could respond, the metal floor shook again, this time even stronger. This fell from the ceiling, and a deep metallic roar echoed through the tunnels. Evan grabbed Lyra's hand, his voice urgent. We need to go. They rushed toward another exit. Evan using his memory of the station's hidden paths. He led them through a broken storage room, past old supply crates, and into a darker area below the diner. The walls here looked older, covered in rust and old cables. As they moved deeper, Lyra whispered, I can feel the core waking up. Evan looked at her in concern. Waking up? Is that bad? Lyra nodded. It reacts to fear. Danger. It tries to protect me. A soft silver glow spread from her chest, brightening the hallway. Evan's eyes widened. Is that normal? She shook her head. No. It only happens when I am very scared. Evan squeezed her hand. We'll get out of this, I promise. But his promise was tested immediately. A loud metallic crash echoed behind them, followed by slow, heavy footsteps. Evan turned just enough to see a tall shadow step into the hallway. Its armor was black as night, its face smooth and empty like a polished mask. Red lights glowed along its arms. A hunter. Its steps were silent after the first one, like a ghost moving across metal. Lyra's hand tightened around Evan's, her breath shaking. Evan whispered, Run. They sprinted down the corridor, their footsteps echoing wildly. Lyra's glow grew brighter, lighting the path ahead. The hunter followed with terrifying calm, not rushing, not stumbling. It moved like it already knew they had nowhere left to go. At the end of the corridor, Evan found a large circular hatch. He slammed his hand on the panel, but the old door didn't open. Come on, please. Come on, he whispered desperately. The hunter's shadow stretched across the floor. Coming closer, Lyra pressed her small hand to the hatch. Her core glowed like a rising star. The panel sparked, then unlocked with a sharp click. The hatch opened. Evan pulled her through, and the door slammed shut just as the hunter reached it. Evan panted hard, staring at the closed door. He knew it wouldn't hold forever. But he also knew something else. Lyra's power was far stronger than he first understood, and she trusted him now, more than anyone in the universe, and that trust would shape his fate, whether he was ready or not. Evan didn't stop running until he was sure the hatch door behind them had locked completely. His breathing was heavy, his arms shaking, but he didn't let go of Lyra's hand. The room they entered was huge and dark, filled with metal containers, broken machines, and long shadows stretching across the floor. It looked like an old storage hangar that the station no longer used. Lyra's soft glow lit the dusty space around them. Her silver hair floated slightly, reacting to the core inside her. Evan wiped the sweat from his forehead and whispered, Are you okay? Lyra nodded, but her voice trembled. The core is waking more. It doesn't like danger. It makes me feel warm and cold together. Evan crouched beside her and placed a hand on her back. I know you're scared, but I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. Lyra looked up at him with eyes full of trust, a kind of trust she never gave anyone before. It made Evan feel something new, like he wasn't just protecting her because she needed help, but because she mattered to him now, deeply. Suddenly, the old hangar lights flickered, then buzzed back to life for a moment, before going dark again. Evan stayed alert, listening to every faint sound. He didn't hear the hunters yet, but he knew they were out there, searching, calculating, getting closer. "We need a plan," Evan whispered, trying to calm his own fear. "This part of the station connects to the cargo lifts. If we can reach them, we might get to the upper levels where security patrols still work." Lyra shook her head. "Hunters break security. They walk past doors like smoke." Evan frowned, but he didn't give up. Humans didn't have advanced armor or glowing powers, but they had something else: stubbornness, cleverness, instinct. And right now Evan needed all three. He scanned the hangar and spotted something in the far corner: maintenance carts. Old but still functional, they moved supplies across the station floor on silent magnetic wheels. If he could power one up, they could travel quickly without making noise. "Come on," he whispered, leading Lyra across the shadowy hangar. When they reached the cart, Evan tapped the screen, but it stayed black. He groaned softly. "No power." Lyra lifted her glowing hand and touched the control panel. A faint spark of silver energy flowed from her skin. The screen flickered, then lit up completely. Evan stared at her in surprise. "You can do that?" he whispered. Lyra nodded. "The Corps wants to help." "When I want to help someone," Evan felt warmth spread in his chest. "Thank you." They climbed onto the maintenance cart, and Evan steered it toward the large sliding doors on the far side of the hangar. The wheels moved silently, gliding across the floor like light air. Lyra sat close beside him, holding onto his arm. Just as they approached the exit, a deep metallic boom echoed through the walls. The hangar trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Lyra gasped and clutched Evan's sleeve. "They found us," she whispered. Evan pushed the cart faster, but the old doors were slow, painfully slow. He could hear a high electrical sound behind them, like something charging, gathering power. Lyra turned her head, her eyes widening in horror. Evan didn't want to look, but he did. A hunter stepped into the hangar, its tall armor reflecting the dim light. Its featureless mask stared at them. Its body moved with unnatural calm. It didn't rush. It didn't stumble. It simply followed, confident that escape was impossible. Evan shouted, "Hold on!" The cart slipped through the doors just as they closed, sealing the hunter out for a moment. Evan pushed the velocity to its limit, and the cart shot through a long loading tunnel, but the relief was short-lived. A second hunter dropped from the ceiling ahead, landing silently like a shadow, its mask glowing with cold red lines. Lyra screamed, the core inside her exploding with light. A wave of silver energy burst outward, hitting the hunter and throwing it back into the wall. Evan shielded his face from the light, stunned. "Lyra, what was that?" She shook violently. I can't control it. It reacts when I'm too scared." Evan pulled her into his arms as the cart moved forward. "It's okay. You're safe. I promise you're safe." But deep, the hunters were getting stronger. Lyra's powers were awakening, and soon Evan would face a choice that no ordinary human should ever face. Yet he didn't back away, because she needed him more than anyone ever had. The maintenance cart sped through the narrow cargo tunnel, its silent wheels gliding over the smooth metal floor. Evan kept one hand on the controls and the other wrapped around Lyra, who was still shaking from the sudden burst of power she had released. The silver glow from her core was fading slowly, but she looked exhausted, her breaths coming out in small trembling gasps. Evan whispered, "You did great. You protected us." Lyra shook her head weakly. "No, I don't want to hurt anyone. The core reacts on its own when I'm scared." "I didn't mean to throw him." Her voice cracked as if she carried guilt heavier than her small body could handle. Evan gently held her closer. "You didn't hurt anyone, Lyra. You just pushed him away." But Evan knew she didn't believe it. He could feel her fear, her confusion, her loneliness. It made him even more determined to keep her safe. The tunnel lights flickered, then glowed red. Evan's heart dropped. The station rarely changed lighting colors unless there was danger. A soft mechanical voice echoed from the speakers above. Unauthorized presence detected in Cargo Route 7. Lyra's eyes widened. They're using the station systems. They're controlling everything. Evan swallowed hard. Then we need to get off this cart before they trap us. Before he could slow down, the entire tunnel shook. A heavy thud hit the roof of the cart. Then another. Evan felt the metal bend slightly. Lyra clutched his arm. They're on top of us. The roof dented inward as claw-like metal fingers dug through the surface. Scraping closer and closer, Evan knew if the hunter tore through, they wouldn't stand a chance. He turned the cart sharply, driving it toward a side platform used for loading crates. The sudden turn threw the hunter off balance, and it slid across the roof with a metallic screech. Evan seized the moment and hit the emergency brake. The cart stopped abruptly, and the hunter was thrown forward, crashing into a stack of metal containers with a loud clang. "Come on!" Evan shouted, pulling Lyra off the cart. They ran into the loading platform, leaping over fallen crates and scattered tools. Lyra's glow flickered like a dim lantern, lighting their way through the maze of steel. Behind them, the hunter rose slowly. Its armor cracked but still functioning. It moved with terrifying calm, as if pain didn't exist for it. Lyra whispered, "It won't stop. It will never stop." Evan turned to face her, placing both hands on her shoulders. "Lyra, listen to me. They may be stronger, faster, but we have something they don't." Tears rolled down her glowing cheeks. "What?" "Heart," Evan whispered. "Courage. And the will to protect each other." Lyra blinked, startled by his words. But before she could answer, the hunter stepped forward. In its hand was a weapon formed from its own armor, a blade that hummed with dark energy. Evan moved in front of Lyra without thinking, spreading his arms to protect her. "You want her? You'll have to go through me," he said, surprising even himself with his courage. The hunter tilted its head, almost confused by the human's defiance. Then it stepped closer, its armor vibrating with power. Lyra grabbed Evan's shirt tightly. "Vivian, move. I don't want you to get hurt." Evan shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." The hunter raised its blade, and for a moment everything froze. The air grew heavier. Lyra's glow brightened uncontrollably, her core responding to the danger. "No, not again. I can't control it," Lyra whispered, panic rising. Evan turned and held her face gently. "Look at me, Lyra. Focus on me, not the fear. Not the hunter. Just me." Lyra stared into his eyes, her trembling slowing just a little. The silver glow steadied, becoming calmer, warmer. The hunter thrust its blade forward. Lyra screamed, and the core erupted. But this time it didn't explode wildly. It formed a shimmering barrier around them, a dome of silver light that stopped the blade inches from Evan's chest. The hunter pushed harder, but the barrier held strong. Lyra gasped, I did it. I controlled it. Evan, I controlled it." Evan smiled softly, even as the barrier trembled under pressure. "You're amazing," he whispered. But the danger wasn't over, because the hunter was calling for reinforcements, and both Evan and Lyra could hear them coming, a storm of footsteps echoing through the metal corridors. And Evan knew the next fight would decide everything, for Lyra, for himself, and for whatever destiny awaited them beyond fear, hunger, and darkness. ***. The silver barrier around them shook like a thin bubble under heavy rain, cracks of light spreading across its surface as more footsteps echoed through the loading corridors. Evan held Lyra close, feeling her small body tremble as she tried to keep the core under control. Sweat rolled down her forehead, her glow flickering like a weak candle fighting against the wind. "They're coming. More of them." "Too many," Lyra whispered, her voice thin and tired. Evan looked around quickly, searching for any escape, any door, any ladder, anything that could help them survive the next few seconds. but the platform was open on 3 sides, and the hunters were slowly surrounding it from all directions. Their armor glowed with cold red lines, their faceless masks turning toward the barrier like hungry wolves choosing their meal. Evan kneeled beside Lyra, placing his hands on her shoulders again. Listen, you don't have to fight them alone, okay? You have me. Lyra shook her head weakly. Evan, the core. It's strong, but it drains me. I can't use it again. I can't hold the shield much longer. You don't need to, Evan whispered. Just trust me. With a slow breath he stood, placing himself between Lyra and the hunters. His legs shook, but he didn't step back. The barrier around them thinned until only a faint glow remained. Evan could see the dark armor clearly now. The hunters didn't speak, didn't move fast. They advanced slowly and silently, like executioners walking toward their target. One of them raised its blade again, testing the weakening barrier. Lyra cried out softly as the core flickered. Evan turned his head and whispered, "It's okay. Don't be scared. Focus on breathing." "But what will you do?" Lyra asked with terrified eyes. Evan stared at the hunters and felt something rise. Inside him, not fear, not weakness, but a strange, burning courage he had never felt before. He shouted, "You won't take her." The hunters paused for a brief moment, confused by the humans' defiance. Their programming didn't understand why a waiter, a simple human, stood against them. Humans were supposed to run, hide, surrender, not fight, not challenge, not stand. Tall with fire in their eyes, and for a small moment, the hunters hesitated. Lyra felt it too. She looked at Evan as if she was seeing him for the first time. "Evan, you're glowing." Evan blinked, shocked. His skin wasn't glowing like Lyra's, but something else was happening. The leftover core energy around them clung to him, wrapping him in faint silver sparkles. The core was reacting not to fear, but to his courage. One hunter stepped forward anyway, slashing with its blade. Evan grabbed a thick metal pipe from the ground and blocked the strike with a loud clang. The shock made his arms burn with pain, but he didn't drop the pipe. He pushed back, surprising the hunter with unexpected human strength, fueled by core energy. Another hunter jumped toward them, but Lyra raised her hand weakly, sending a small pulse of light that knocked the creature off balance. Evan followed with a strike to its chest, forcing it to retreat. They weren't winning, but they were no longer losing either. Lyra's small voice filled the air, shaky but proud. "Evan, you're fighting with the core. It chose you. It trusts you." Evan didn't understand how or why, but he didn't have time to think. He fought, dodging blades, striking back, protecting Lyra with every breath. The hunters seemed almost confused, as if their programming struggled to calculate a human who refused to break. More red lights flashed down the hall, more hunters arriving. Too many to fight. Evan held Lyra tight. "Lyra, one last time, can the core help us escape?" Lyra leaned into him, her little hands gripping his shirt. "Only if we jump. Together, I can make a pulse that pushes everything away. Will it hurt you?" Evan asked quietly. She shook her head. "Not if you hold me." He wrapped his arms around her, lifting her gently. "Then do it." "I'm right here." Lyra closed her eyes, the core glowing brighter than ever before. The hunters rushed forward. A blinding explosion of silver light burst from Lyra's chest. Waves of energy swept across the loading platform, lifting Evan and Lyra like feathers, and throwing every hunter backward like broken shadows. When the light faded, Evan found himself lying in a quiet docking bay, holding Lyra in his arms. She was breathing softly, safe, peaceful. Moments later, station guards arrived, confused but shocked as sensors identified the child in Evan's arms, the celestial heir. Evan looked at Lyra and smiled. "I told you. You're not alone anymore," Lyra whispered. "And you're not just a waiter anymore. You're my protector." Evan didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness he gave her at the start had turned him into a legend who would be remembered across galaxies. And Lyra, The girl with a star inside her would stay by his side forever.